Oh, you're right. You better ride. Come on and ride. Train, come on. You better ride that train. Come on. Ride. Come on and ride. You people get ready. I said now people. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I believe Robin is going to join us shortly. I know she was having a little difficulty with her camera, but we can definitely hear her. So, Robin, are you there?
I am here.
Okay. If you get the camera thing fixed, you can just pop on here, but at least we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay. So Robin, tonight we're going to talk about the housing crisis. And I wanted to start out by thanking everybody for coming in. Number two, encouraging you to participate, to ask questions, give us your thoughts. Um, we want this to be as interactive as we possibly can. You are here on the Hidden Voices podcast every Monday at 7 p.m. And you are here. And we want you to make sure that you be active and you're getting something out of this. So feel free to comment anytime. We appreciate your comments. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. So let's dive into it. One of the things one of our biggest goals have always been to bring information to the community. So tonight we're gonna talk about the housing crisis, and we have a little something that we want to show you. Hopefully, you can get a lot out of it. Living on a thread, this is Robin and Tammy, co-hosts of Hidden Voices. Today, we're addressing a crisis that hits close to home, the housing crisis in Texas. This issue affects everyone, but especially Black and Hispanic families, the elderly, and children, those most vulnerable. We'll explore how rising rents, stagnant wages, and displacement impact communities, the history behind these issues in places like Elm Street in Dallas, and how voting can play a critical role in solving these challenges. The numbers tell the story. In 2024, the median rent in Texas reached $1,878. For many Black and Hispanic families working minimum wage jobs earning about $1,213 a month, housing is simply out of reach. Homelessness is rising across Texas, up 1% in 2023, and it's children and the elderly who often bear the brunt. Imagine being a senior citizen living on a fixed income, forced to choose between paying rent or buying medication, or a child trying to focus on school without a stable place to live. Families are being forced to make impossible decisions. Let's take a look at Hall Street in Dallas. This area underwent redevelopment that improved the neighborhood, but at a cost. Many families, predominantly Black and Hispanic, were displaced as rising rents made it impossible for them to stay. The elderly were particularly affected, as many had lived in the area for decades and had no resources to relocate. This isn't just about homes, it's about tearing apart communities and uprooting lives. The housing challenges we see today have deep roots in Dallas's history. Take Elm Street in the 1940s. a vibrant area home to working class families and thriving businesses, many owned by Black and Hispanic entrepreneurs. But urban development and highway construction projects in the mid 20th century displaced hundreds of families and businesses, tearing apart communities. Elm Street's story is a reminder that systemic issues like redlining, segregation, and displacement have long shaped the housing landscape in Dallas. Elderly Texans are among the fastest growing groups facing housing insecurity. Many live on fixed incomes like Social Security, which doesn't adjust for rising rents. In Dallas, seniors who've lived in the same neighborhoods for decades are being pushed out as property values and taxes rise due to redevelopment. This often leaves them with no choice but to move to shelters or unsafe living conditions. It's a heartbreaking reality for people who've contributed so much to their communities. One of the most powerful ways to address the housing crisis is through voting. Local, state, and federal policies determine how housing resources are allocated, what protections tenants have, and how wages are set. When we vote, we can elect leaders who will prioritize affordable housing, protect seniors from displacement, and invest in underserved communities. Civic engagement gives us the power to push for meaningful change in our neighborhoods. But there is hope. Some initiatives are helping families and seniors stay in their homes. In Austin, community land trusts are being used to ensure affordable housing remains accessible. In Dallas, policies like the Anti-Displacement Toolkit and Housing Policy 2033 aim to protect vulnerable families and elderly residents from being pushed out. Organizations like Housing Forward and the Dallas Housing Coalition are working to preserve affordable housing while providing resources to those in need. These efforts are critical for creating stability, especially for our most vulnerable populations. So, what can we do? First, we need to share stories about how these challenges are impacting our communities. Support local initiatives working to create equitable housing opportunities. In Dallas, policies like the Anti-Displacement Toolkit and Housing Policy 2033 aim to protect vulnerable families and elderly residents from being pushed out. Organizations like Housing Forward and the Dallas Housing Coalition are working to preserve affordable housing while providing resources to those in need. These efforts are critical for creating stability, especially for our most vulnerable populations. So, what can we do? First, we need to share stories about how these challenges are impacting our communities. Support local initiatives working to create equitable housing opportunities. And most importantly, vote. Every election matters, local, state, and federal. Vote for leaders who understand the importance of housing equity and protections for seniors, families, and children. By voting, we can demand the policies and resources our communities deserve. Thank you for watching this episode of Hidden Voices. If this video resonated with you, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep shining a light on the issues that matter and working together for a more equitable future. Until next time, take care. Okay, well, Robin's camera is still not working, but we can touch base on just talk about that part. Um, so just recap and, of course, your comments. Let me just say, uh, thank y'all for joining. I see my nephew's on here. Hi, how you doing? And your feedback. You're a very thoughtful young man. So, and thanks for trying to take care of your kids. And I think he's cooking dinner. So that's really nice that you took out time to be with us. And hi, Lori. Um, so let's delve into this housing crisis. One of the things that we can look at is, in fact, the cost of housing has actually went down in Texas, but not down enough that it was pre-pandemic down. It's still higher than it was before the pandemic. The average rent to rent a home um, or an apartment in Dallas Dallas and the surrounding areas is 1,878 per month, And I think in Tarrant County, I think in Tarrant County it is high Pastor Rogers. In Tarrant County, I believe it's 1650. And so in Austin, it's relatively high. I think it's maybe 2,000. I don't know. I'd have to look at those numbers again. But the rent is went, the cost of living to keep a roof over your head has went up. Mortgage rates and everything else has just skyrocketed. Now they are coming down, but still not low enough, not where it was before the pandemic. Now the problem with that is, even though it's coming down, what's not going up is wages. In Texas, the minimum wage is still $7.25, which is roughly $1,200 a month. If on average, the average apartment in Dallas is 1,800, there's no way that someone is going to get to a place where they can get a roof over their head, pay for the utilities, you need food, and all of these other things. So the the Dallas Housing Coalition, um, I listed a couple of others. We can go back through those. I'll say them before we end. Are different organizations that's trying to help with that. So, Robin, are you
Yes.
there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So, Robin, why don't you kick in? I kind of just gave a little backdrop of where we are right today.
Okay. The With the housing market being so expensive, it's what it's doing is pushing a lot of people out of their communities. Um, and this is where we come in with the gentrification. A lot of people, there's advantages and disadvantages to the gentrification. Some of the advantages is that it makes because the neighborhoods are mostly run down, it's making the neighborhoods safer. It's bringing new uh, food places, bringing doctors, it's bringing grocery stores to the communities where a lot of them had went away because of the economic low poverty in these areas. Some of the things that were improved with the gentrification. Like I said, it makes the community safer. It brings in more places for people to go out. They can shop. They have doctors that are more local. Some of the places they even not in Texas because we do have buses, but in some places they don't, and when it drives out the lower incomes, it takes away the bus systems. Um, the disadvantages is that it makes the people feel like they have lost their culture because nothing is the same. Everything has changed around them. What they're used to have changed. The reason that most of the communities, like I know West Dallas is one of the communities that has been gentrified, and the reason why that particular market was so that particular land was so um, valuable to people because it's so close to the downtown areas, and we have so many people that work in downtown. They knew that if they could drive out the community that was there, they could bring in people that worked in that area and they can increase the rates. Well, the people that live there, if they don't own their homes, um, then the market went up and they can't afford to live there anymore. I've seen in that area where it used to be a lot of people, it used to be a lot of businesses. They're not there anymore. And I've seen the new places that they've brought in. They are nice, but even the restaurants are very expensive. The apartment in that area now, where they used to pay $500 and $600, they're like $2,000 for a 1 and a 2 bedroom apartment. So uh, personally, because I know people in that area and I grew up in that area, I see it as a win and a loss. And but I can definitely say that I miss the old neighborhood, and I don't know very many people that are still there anymore.
So I was thinking, you know, in here, in the video, we gave an example of the gentrification, which
Mm-hmm.
was the House Street area,
Uh-huh.
and it was in 2021, I believe, or 2020. that they really finished up everything. But the contractors were paid to go in the area, fix the area, add businesses, um, fitness centers, grocery stores, because that's the House Street area. And at one point, they didn't really have a lot of grocery stores. So they were paid to go in and put grocery stores and build up the landscape, the roads, the um everything around it, and build apartments. Well, right at the beginning of House Street was the House Street projects, and then there were some low income homes in the area. And what happened? It was supposed to help them build up the area, but instead they all had to move
Mhm.
because property tax went up, the cost of living in that area went up, everything around them went up. And so they could not maintain that. And so they were kind of, well, not kind of, they were forced out of that area. And because that happened, and the outrage of those people being relocated, when many of them were elderly, many of them had lived there for several decades, and then, like she said, they were forced to move to places because West Dallas wasn't an option either, because rebuilding and the cost of living was going up in West Dallas. So Dallas County has a toolkit that's supposed to, and I'm going to post it on our page, but a toolkit that's supposed to prevent that from happening, that is supposed to provide more transparency. Now, Governor Abbott has $95 million, and that $95 million is supposed to go and revitalize underrepresented communities. The thing is about being transparent and us following where that money goes and what is happening with that money. The people that live in these low income homes, or in homes that they've been in for, goodness, 30 years or whatever, it is some of them are disabled. I work with people that have disabilities. That's close to my heart. uh, these people sometimes have, a lot of times have disabilities. They're seniors. Where are they supposed to go, and what are they supposed to do? So that 95 million is really important for all of us to know, that that money has been allocated to help build communities uh, that have historically not received uh, the attention that they need. And this has happened before, and the contractors actually uh, built homes that people could not even maintain and keep. The money was misappropriated, and what turned out to be, what was supposed to be something good for the community, it turned into a mass exodus of the community, and the people got scattered all over, and they left places where they had a history and they had lifelong friends and all of these things. And some of the elderly even ended up in shelters, and they're on a fixed income, and there's no way that they're going to be able to keep up with this. So we want to, one, be glad that we know that money is out there, and two, we need to watch how it's being spent and where. And all of these things is transparent. I mean, we can go online and we can find out just about anything we want to know. It just takes the effort to do it. To go online, to go out, go walk in places, you can get records just for the asking. But that's the only way that we're going to be educated, and that's the only way that we are going to know the truth. So I'll be posting the toolkit, as well as the different organizations like Habitat for America, and we're going to be posting these.
and we always hopeful. I know it's not flashy, it's not a funny memes or nothing like that. So it's a lot harder to get people to read it. But we're gonna keep on putting it out there because if we can get people to read it, then they'll and to become aware of these things, then they will probably take action. That is at least our hope.
Okay. I want to answer Derek's question, Apostle Derek. I want to start out by saying when they first came to West Dallas, because I had an aunt that lived there. When they first came to West Dallas and they started doing, I don't think anybody really knew about the regenification, but my aunt, she was elderly. So what they did was they came in and they started getting people that own their homes to sign to, they would redo your house. And if you lived in that house for 15 years, then your loan was paid off. You didn't have to pay it anymore. But they were already banking on the fact that they were elderly. They were probably going to pass away, and then their children would probably lose the house. Now, for the people that had Section A, what they did was they would give them vouchers. They would move them out to the suburbs. Most of them didn't have cars, and transportation was limited. So, because they wanted to get them out of that area because they knew what was coming. Now, what? Because, like I said, we do resources, and I help different people find housing for a program. I have done that before, but what they're finding now is that now the vouchers, they don't have as many vouchers, and they don't have as much money for the vouchers. So families that basically that moved out, they want to come back into the city, and they can't because they can't afford what their vouchers are. So if they had a voucher for a 3 bedroom, they're having to downsize with families. So and the funds are not as they don't have as many funds for the housing, or they're not allocating very much housing funds for Section 8 right now. And then they've gotten to where they're putting people that are in shelters and in battered homeless and battered women, they're giving them priority to the Section 8 vouchers. So that's as far as I know about the vouchers.
So another issue we have is there's not enough homes, and some of that 95 million is supposed to go to building single uh, family homes in many of like Oak Cliff, West Dallas, South Dallas um, areas. We just need to see if that happens. And these one of the questions that I had, and I had to do a lot of research, was okay, you build these houses, how do we ensure that the right people uh, benefit from that? I don't want to see that kind of thing come out to Plano and they start building homes here in big homes, but single family homes that are comfortable, that's nice. Uh, and so that's all about the monitoring part. But one of the problems is there is just not enough property. There's not enough homes to purchase, and there's not enough. It's just not enough property. The demand, and so that money is supposed to go to building single family homes in those targeted areas. Um,
Mhm.
so we shall see. We shall see how that turns out. So one of the things that we wanted to really touch base on today is redlining. I don't know how many people know what redlining is, but it's a practice that started many years ago, and it really ended about, I think, in the late 50s. It ended, but the ramifications of redlining is still prevalent today. So if you allow us a minute or two, we'll get you some information about redlining.
Welcome. This is Robin and Tammy, host of Hidden Voices. Today we're uncovering a hidden chapter in housing history, redlining. This discriminatory practice shaped cities like Dallas, and its legacy is still felt today in the form of segregation, economic inequality, and housing disparities. Let's dive into what redlining is, how it started, its lasting impact, and the critical role voting plays in addressing these issues. Redlining began in the 1930s when the federal government's Homeowners Loan Corporation, or HOLC, created maps to determine which neighborhoods were safe for investment. Areas with predominantly black, immigrant, or minority populations were marked in red and labeled hazardous. This practice effectively denied these communities access to loans, insurance, and other critical resources, leaving them economically starved and segregated. In Dallas, the effects of redlining were stark. South Dallas, a predominantly black neighborhood, was marked in red on Hilo-C maps. This designation denied families the opportunity to own homes, build wealth, and access quality services. Meanwhile, areas like North Dallas, which were predominantly white, received favorable ratings, attracting investment and development. The result: a city divided along racial and economic lines, with communities of color left to struggle with decaying infrastructure, underfunded schools, and fewer opportunities. Although redlining was outlawed by the Fair Housing Act in 1968, its effects didn't just disappear. Decades of disinvestment left redline neighborhoods with lower property values, fewer jobs, and worse health outcomes. Even today, areas historically marked as red zones in Dallas often have lower homeownership rates, higher poverty levels, and limited access to resources compared to neighborhoods that were marked in green or blue. One of the most powerful ways we can address the legacy of redlining is through voting. Policies that shape housing, education, and investment in underserved neighborhoods are decided by elected officials at the local, state, and federal levels. When we vote, we help elect leaders who can prioritize equitable housing policies, fair lending practices, and investments in communities that have been historically overlooked. Voting also supports initiatives like zoning reforms and funding for affordable housing programs. Allow us to speak clearly and concisely. The bottom line is that the bigotry of redlining caused Black and Hispanic people left with 1. Denied banks loans people couldn't buy or fix homes. 2. No investments businesses avoided these areas. 3. Homes lost value, property values dropped over time. 4. Bad schools. Schools got less funding because of low property taxes. 5. Poor services, streets, parks, and utilities weren't maintained. 6. Jobs disappeared, companies avoided hiring or opening in these areas. 7. Families moving away, those who could leave did, leaving the area worse off. 8. Rising crime. Lack of jobs and resources led to more struggles. 9. Health issues, pollution, and bad living conditions hurt people's health. In Dallas, organizations and policies are working to undo these injustices. Programs like the Community Reinvestment Act encourage banks to invest in underserved neighborhoods. Nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity are building affordable homes in areas historically left behind. And local leaders are advocating for policies to address systemic inequities. But these efforts require community support. And that begins with civic engagement, including voting for leaders who will fight for equity. So, what can we do? First, we need to acknowledge the history of redlining and its lasting impact. Share stories about how these practices shaped our cities. Support local initiatives aimed at creating equitable housing opportunities. And most importantly, vote. Vote in every election, local, state, and federal. Make your voice heard so we can demand policies that prioritize investment in underserved communities and fight systemic inequities. Together, we can begin to dismantle the barriers that redlining built. Thank you for watching this episode of Hidden Voices. If you found this topic important, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep shining a light on the issues that matter and work together for a more equitable future.
So redlining. So we always welcome your questions. If you have any questions about redlining, I will say that the new now this is my thoughts from what I've seen. The new form of redlining is saying high crime area. Um, it's just another way to identify an area. Now, if you say high crime area, well, it's probably going to be harder to get loans for those areas to open businesses in those areas. Uh, instead of and rather than building um, those areas up. I don't think any of us want to live around a bunch of crime, but it's not. Uh, it's a layered issue. It's a limited amount of jobs today, and it's a low paying jobs in the communities. And so, yes, if you're gonna have low paying jobs, and that's primarily what people can have access to for the most part, not just in Dallas. I mean, there are some places in the surrounding areas that the buses don't go, like Mesquite. And so it'll go close in Garland, but it won't go to Mesquite. The bus doesn't go to McKinney. So if all you have in your immediate area is low paying jobs, well, crime is probably going to follow. Um, Robin.
I was going to say that, and like you stated before, the answer, the way we fight it is by voting. You have to get out there and vote because, of course, we don't want people to lose their homes and be displaced. But in the same aspect, when they push people out of the community, they're going to have to gravitate to other areas. And when they do that, it's going to overpopulate your city. They're building more apartment complexes. Like in where I live now, there's so many apartments around here, and they're just coming up because they have to have somewhere to put people. And it's because a lot of people didn't get out there and vote, or they didn't voice their opinions when city councils had meetings. Zoning regulations were changed.
And we have a lot of people that may be on probation, may be on parole, can't vote. So do we tell them just sit on a couch? No. They can go to meetings, they can voice things, they can volunteer, they can understand and be a resource for others. There is always something that you can do uh, regarding the things that affect our lives every day, from health issues, which we're probably going to do pretty soon, to housing. We've talked about education. There is always something that we can do, but the biggest part is doing something and not being educated about, or not having the knowledge of what the current status is. It's kind of hard to fit in there and get something taken care of. Other processes that we have to go through in order to get in front of certain audiences. So we just want to really just continue to educate everyone. This housing crisis is a big thing. This wage inequality, they're all tied together. It's not a one or the other. And the housing crisis has remnants of redlining. Redlining actually started out in the 30s. And what happened was, I think it was President Roosevelt. President Roosevelt, it was right after the Depression, and people were losing their homes and stuff. And he actually created that to help people keep their homes. Well, they did that. But after they did that, they had to have something to do. And based on feedback and trying to help businesses grow and trying to grow generational wealth, they created that map. And that map was not just used in Texas, that map was used everywhere. And that map was used from, I think, about 1934 until about 1953. That is almost 20 years of redlining, meaning don't invest in that community. That's what it meant. It meant do not invest in that community, do not build homes in that community, do not create jobs in that community. And so the community ended up over years decaying visually. The heart of the community was there, but visually, they couldn't get loans to repair their homes. Uh, Jobs were limited, and some people didn't even have a car, so they couldn't even get to where they needed to get to to a better job. And think about the times, it was 1930s to 1950s, significantly different than today. So if you talk about that, and the reason I always say history is so important, it's because that which happened in 1933 has a direct impact on what is going on right now, because the communities went through 40 years of decay. The first 20, um, and then when the redlining map was in effect, and then the 20 after that, because the communities were already starting to wither and no one was going to invest in them. So you got many, many, many years, more than, I mean, many years. It's 2024, and so in 2021, um, that's when they what happened to Hall Street. It also happened to Elm Street. Elm Street used to be a thriving community. And then because of redlining and building on highways, those people got moved out of their neighborhood that had businesses and all kinds of things in here. That started then, but it's affecting us even today.
I think a lot of people too, that a lot of people think, well, this is not in my neighborhood, so I don't have to think about it, I have to worry about it. Well, if they're pushing people out of their communities, it doesn't matter if you feel like, well, this community is not close to me. Those people have to go somewhere, and there might be instance where it's just, if it's a large family, they might be in your neighborhood to with a house full of people. So you just have to get out and vote for everyone, not just for yourself and for your own comfort, but for so other people can also have comfort in where they want to live or where they want to reside. It's just not, voting is not just for us in our community.
So feel free to type any questions that you have. Of course, you see we're looking at the comments, and we thank you for the comments that we've gotten so far. Um, so I think that we need to uh, understand what is already in place. I don't want to imply that there are not things in place, that and coalitions and different organizations. Some people working with the banks. Some organizations are working with the banks. We don't want to imply that those things aren't going on, but it's more important that we know who it is and that it is going on so that we can connect. It is not a problem to pick up and say, I'd like to know how you're going to invest in uh, low income communities and how we're going to help. Because, even schools went bad because the property tax was so low, and the people, the school wasn't getting the funding that the schools needed to do, to get, that the schools deserved to get. And so they didn't have a lot of the resources that other school districts had. And we see the remnants of that today.
Mm-hmm.
And we see the remnants of unemployment today, as well as and I'll tell you, I did check, and there is nothing on the current agenda to increase the minimum wage. And it's research on both sides. What I did find out was that there is an independent research company that looked into wages, and their job wasn't to say whether the legislature should increase wages or not. So, based on your perspective, you can find information in that research document that would support either or. But what we know is $7.25 an hour is not enough for any adult to live on and provide for their family. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that in Texas, companies have taken it upon themselves to increase the rate more than 725, but that is not everybody. We cannot take a snapshot of our situation where you may work for a company that once paid and said, we can't do that. We're not getting any applicants, because you're probably not going to get applicants, not many. Uh, and so we got to increase our wages. Um, but that's done on a business by business determination. It is not the law of the land where minimum wage is above 725. So in Texas, the minimum wage, and people can legally, I mean, and be within their rights to pay 725 an hour for jobs. And last week we talked about artificial intelligence, and this is all becoming, if you just tie each one of our episodes together, you'll see a story of people with disabilities, women, people of color, all around, where they must get active and stop reading memes to get all of their information, and talking to Jody over there, who never picks up a book or never actually does research, probably gets most of it off of YouTube shorts.
Yeah.
Robin?
And you definitely could go to your city or your county's web page and look at any new developments that they have. They'll show you what developments they have for your for zonings, the new zoning updates, any plans, any proposed projects, any road improvements that they have. Look those things up. Be diligent in getting involved into your community so that you will have a voice to what's going on around you. Don't let them make all the decisions for somewhere that you plan to spend the rest of your life.
Right. And we need to be aware and be equipped and armed with information so that we'll know, what was expected. And sometimes it takes some work, to try to read through complicated language. I get it. Um, but asking questions, we can do that. We can walk in places and do that. Internet is great, but searching for real, concrete, data proven information becomes more complicated, because on the internet, people tend to see things that's not data driven, that has no rhyme or reason. You can't track it back to anything. It's mostly opinions put as fact. And there is a difference between a fact and an opinion. So when we're on the internet researching, look up acts, look up laws, bills, because they're accurate. The bill is what it is. And if you don't understand it, I encourage you to use uh, all of the new technology that we have to translate it for you in language that you can understand. And if
Mhm.
that's artificial intelligence, then take it and put it in there and say, I don't understand this gibberish. I need to know what this is saying about my community, what this bill or law is saying. And Robin and I will do everything we can to break it down to you. What we cannot continue to have is people that live in this city, that's been in their communities for over years and years and years, or the single parent kid that just got out of college that wants to buy a home, but they got so much student loan plus the high cost of housing that they end up paying that loan from under their mother's roof and their father's roof. We don't, we have to do something to stop, to help with some of that. Oh, there we go. Robin. Oh, I don't know if she, Robin. All right. So just to recap a few things, the income inequality in Texas, that's one of the things that's widening the gap. So the the low income, the person that's making $7 an hour, is probably making about $1,200 a month, and then the average salary. I mean, to even live in an apartment, you probably need about 60,000. That's for an apartment. Now, if you were buying a home, the cost of houses have it went way up, and now it's down a little bit. But again, wages got to match that. Income's got to match that. Um, you got wage stagnation. So this $7.25, it dates back to 1979. It dates back to 1979. So the impact on us Texans would be economic mobility. That's very difficult for us. The cost of living is extremely high, and property rate, and this is affecting everyone. Some of this affects everyone. Like the cost of living is high. I don't care who you are, and but it's especially hard when you are making minimal money, barely enough to pay your rent, uh, pay your house note every month. Not to mention food and all of the other things, and help you if you got kids, and that's more that you have to be responsible for. And so this economic disparities is having a big impact, and it's worsened by the cost of living being so high, and the poverty rate is just persistent and high. Things like utilities, food, healthcare, all those things are rising costs. Our health insurance, even though I work for somebody with really good health insurance, but the health insurance across the board, if you have it when you work, now you can get Affordable Care Act, but if you actually are getting your health or be a vet like I am, then there's some options. But if you don't, if you're working and you make any kind of money, you're probably paying very high health care. And even if you're not, you might be paying very high health care. And the wages are just not keeping up pace with the cost of living, including the cost of housing and to maintain a house and the upkeep on a house. I said earlier about the housing supply, and because there isn't a good housing supply, that's part of the reason that the cost of purchasing a house is so high. Many of the
And they
families, huh? Go on,
they
Ron.
are still they are still building, but unfortunately, what they are building are they're either building a lot of apartments that are unaffordable, or they're building bigger homes.
Yeah, that
I know in
costs
my
more.
neighborhood, they're building homes that are like $2,000, $200,000 more than what the people live here houses are worth. So even if you don't own your home, if you have to move, you couldn't afford to live in the houses because they're so expensive.
Right.
So it don't just have to be gentrification in your area. There's other ways that they have to try to, unfortunately, push people out of the community.
And then we talk about the shelters with the homes, and the idea of an elderly person that's lived in their home for many years having to go to a shelter or some other dangerous situation is almost heartbreaking, because they've worked their lives and they've given back to the community, they've given to their jobs, they've provided for families. And I don't know, one of the things, particularly I'll just speak for the Black community, what I've observed is not being educated. And all of these things are tied together. Financial literacy, you know, I don't know how, our thoughts have always been, well, what the heck I need that for? I don't make anything anyway. And so a lot of people have made minimum wage and bringing up just trying to get their bills paid from month to month. was a challenge, and somehow they made it through. And then to get put out of their neighborhood is really heartbreaking. With our younger people, younger kids, younger families, young people like my nephew who's on here, I think it's very important that we start to teach uh, financial literacy, start to push it, educate ourselves on it. Um, I think it's probably the only way to get to some type of generational wealth. Eventually, all things take time. And uh, so I do think that that's very important. But you know, taking from Peter to pay Paul and making, some of these elderly people made less than $7 an hour. I remember when the minimum wage was 3.25. I'm old enough to remember that. And so $7 seemed like a big deal. But $7 from 1979 to 2025 is a bit much to have to bear. And I don't know how much financial literacy would help you if you're in those categories. We say things sometimes like it's going to fit for everybody, and I don't necessarily believe it will. So they need people to fight for them. And then the younger people and our kids need to be taught financial literacy so that they won't, um, the history won't keep continuing to repeat itself. History should revolve and change. Veterans, another thing, veterans also have really, this housing issue has affected them, and of course, the VA has helped them. But this housing issue has even had an impact on veterans. We see a lot of veterans on the corner homeless. Robin?
Um, I was going to say that a lot of times, like I said, I stated it earlier, you think a lot of things don't affect you and because it's not in your neighborhood. But in the long run, we know that what we're doing is trying to bring you information so that you can inform yourself. When you know better, you do better. We do know that the cost of living is not going down. We know that our wages are not increasing to a standard of being able to afford things that we need. So we have to do what we have to do to plan to get ourselves prepared so that we can be able to keep a roof over our head and pay our bills. And the only way we're going to do that is by being diligent and reaching out and looking and researching on what's going on around us, what's going on in your community with the house and the zoning laws, uh, and also what's going on with the plans with this, even the United States, both overall the tariffs, everything that is going to any and everything that's going to affect you when it comes to your finances. You need to have know a little bit about something. So don't wait until it's too late. Start now. Start making plans to educate yourself to making your situation better for you and your family. Because we definitely don't want to see or hear about anybody being out homeless because they couldn't, something just hit you by surprise.
And when money is allocated, it is our responsibility, our duty to find out where that money is going. And is it
Mhm.
being used for what it's supposed to be? And that's where our vote becomes very important. If it's
Mhm.
not transparent, if the money is not going where it's allocated to go, I don't care. If it was allocated to go to North Dallas, then just say that and then that's where it goes. But if it was allocated for uh the communities that are underrepresented, low income, and they are supposed to be homes, we have a duty to make sure that those funds, whatever funds that are allocated, that they're used in the way that they should be. Now, can our voice just say stop and do it this way? No. That's why we have a vote. And then we can go and then we can vote. And you may get it, you may not. But that's one of your weapons that you can use, and educating and bringing a light to other people that X amount of funds was allocated and it was not used for that. Contractors got X amount instead of it going back into the community, went to people's pockets. I know we say that all the time, but this is a platform where we actually try very hard to give you the date that something went somewhere, the time that something went somewhere, the name of it, what it is, and a name attached to it. Uh, we don't want to do. Uh, we don't want to do what's our popular spinning and stuff like that. We don't want to do spins. If it's good, regardless of who the person is, then we want to bring that to your attention. But if something isn't good, then we want to bring that to the community's attention as well. We want to give you facts. That's one of the things me and Robin had really agreed that was non-negotiable is uh, us being genuine and authentic, authentic with our information and our bias. So uh, we encourage you to continue to join us. Robin, you want your 1 minute?
Yes, yes. I just wanted to say thank everyone for joining us this evening. But our overall topic today was about redlining and gentrification. Those are not the only things that can leave you displaced. Today, I was watching talk about the fires that they had in California, and he talked about how he inherited his parents' house. So when their parents bought their house, it was much cheaper than it is now. He was so wary that now, because the market is so expensive, that they wouldn't be able to rebuild. Just think about if you were displaced for more than 30 days, would you be able to survive? I can't fathom that right now. So make sure you do your work, your research, and be diligent on what you need to do. Be financially literate so that you can save for your family and put your finances in the right section so that you can make the right choices for your family. Thank you for joining us. You have a good evening.
Good afternoon. The first thing, thank you for coming. Please like, share, or subscribe. Also, you can always post questions on our page, which we check regularly, and you can see about our events as well. Um, we put a lot into this topic. We'll have a lot of resources. I'm gonna post those videos again so you can read, people can see them. And the one thing that I would encourage everyone to do is do something. If you tell someone about our podcast, that would make us happy, and because we'd be sharing more information with more people. But if you share information that you gather on our page on Facebook, we're on Instagram, Facebook, we're on Blue Sky. So if you uh, want to find us, it's not really hard. We're also on YouTube, so you can post comments any of those places. Um, we need to take care of our communities, and we need to know what's going on in our communities, and not always after it happened, but sometimes before. And I just really encourage uh, anybody that cares about the elderly, anybody that cares about people with disabilities, people of color, people that are often disenfranchised. If you care about these people, if it's not you, that's fine. But if you care, then educate yourself about what is going on in their community. And because if nothing else, you know, um, you could support something like Robin said. We don't always vote because of what's happening in my immediate circle, but what may be happening that may be affecting someone else. And none of us know if we might end up uh, being one of those disabled, or and if we live long enough, we'll all be elderly. So we thank you tonight, and we hope you have a nice evening. We encourage you to see us next Monday, and we'll be putting out the new event
Good
invite.
night.
Good night.
Get ready to ride this train. You better come on.